Well, hard to believe, but it is year number 10 with David Shaw at the helm on the farm. And this year will be unlike any of his previous 9 as we take a closer look at the third iteration of Stanford's 2020 football schedule. Oregon, Cal, and Washington on the road, home games against the Buffs, Cougs, and Beavs. The big game, by the way, the Friday after Thanksgiving. So that'll be the first time in 123 meetings that rivalry will be played on a Friday. The head coach of the Stanford Cardinal joins Yogi Roth and I now. David, looking at that opener, let's start with that. Game number 1 in Eugene, right out of the gate against the defending Pac-12 champs. I know you have a lot to think about these days, but have you stepped back and thought about what it's going to be like to play in a very quiet Autzen Stadium with no fans?
Yeah, we used to like when it didn't have any noise in it, that means we won the game. But now to say that it's going to be quiet and not completely quiet, right? We're going to have some kind of ambient noise and some kind of things going through the speakers, but we all know it's not the same. To be able to go into that stadium, be able to go into Husky Stadium and know that we're going to be able to hear. You're going to be able to hear the quarterback. You're going to be able to hear in the huddle. You're going to be able to hear on the sidelines. Kind of looking forward to that. It is going to be very, very different. But we can't lose sight of the fact that we're going to play a really good football team. A team that's got length, they've got speed, they've got depth. So that's what our focus is on going up there and be ready to play our best football.
Curious if you take us inside your program on the field first before we get to off the field and all this stuff going on. But this team coming off a season that nobody anticipated, but you played 20 true freshmen. I think 12 of them burned their red shirt, so they played a lot of snaps for you. I got to imagine that there's a lot of noise when those guys are working out and connected and communicating, preparing for the season. What have you recognized in limited activity with them?
Well, it's just advanced their maturity. These guys played a lot of football. They took a lot of lumps, honestly. That Notre Dame front last year was as good as we've played in a while. And at one point in time, we had 4 freshmen that were on the field. And that was tough. But it's propelled them to work extremely hard, to be very self-evaluative, to still look at the positives as well. We were actually played well in spurts with all the young guys that were on the offensive line, that were on the defensive secondary, that were in the linebacking core. So we played a lot of guys and gained a lot of experience. And now the tough part for us, we talked about this as a staff and with my team, that we were in survival mode the entire year. Right from the very beginning, started getting injuries from week 1, losing our superstar left tackle, all the way down, all the guys that we lost. We were in survival mode. You can't excel in survival mode. So after the season, it was about changing that mode back to trying to excel, to try to be great. We're not in survival mode anymore. Everybody's healthy. Everybody's getting back. So now it's about going out there and doing what it takes to win football games.
And it has, from everything I've heard, it sounds like everybody is healthy and looking good. Obviously, just like every other program in the country, you guys are dealing with some attrition. Walker Little, of course, had opted out to focus on the draft. Paulson Adebo announcing he's doing the same just last week. Just thoughts on your reaction to him making that decision. And we know Dwayne Aquina has always found and developed elite DBs. So just maybe give us a peek into what that room is like right now.
Well, neither guy was a surprise. Both guys for a reason. The disruptions in the offseason, I think, really deterred both of those guys. So we knew it was coming. It was just a matter of time before they made those announcements. I'd had conversations with both of those guys really over the last few months, knowing that this was coming. I'm really comfortable in our depth in the defensive back room. I'm very comfortable in the depth in our offensive line room, thank God, now that we're healthy. So I feel really good about the guys that we have. Defensive back-wise, I think we've got a couple of young guys that played last year and a couple of young guys that didn't play, that redshirted, that we're really excited to see. So we've got some length and speed at the corner position as well as a safety position. Not to mention multiple guys that can play those extra defensive back positions, because we know how spread out these offenses are in our conference. So you have to have those nickels and dimes. So I feel that we have 7 or 8 guys that can really play in that back end, and I'm excited to see them get out there.
I bet you're excited to see them get tested by a guy who I think is the best passer in this conference, and Davis Mills in practice too. You've known Davis for a long time, obviously recruiting him from the East Coast. Is he at his healthiest now? And what do you expect from him as he's played a bunch of ball for you already heading into the season as the entrenched starter?
Yeah, from the first time we saw Davis, we knew his ceiling was extremely high. So I expect him to battle to be one of the best quarterbacks in our conference and potentially, one of the best quarterbacks in the nation. I think we've got a lot of weapons around him. I think he's finally healthy, and I think you saw a snapshot of it a little bit the last couple of weeks of the season. His mobility, his ability to escape and throw the ball on the run, his ability to throw the deep ball down the field. That game against Washington State, we didn't win it, but at the same time, some of the film that he put out there was outstanding. I think getting all of our receivers coming back, I think we've got a great cast. So I'm expecting some big things from that entire group.
David, I heard you say something last week during a press conference that has stuck with me, this philosophy of radical acceptance that you talked about. It feels especially poignant in a global pandemic setting. Can you just kind of explain that philosophy and where it came from?
Yeah, it has some roots in Stoicism, ancient Greek and Roman Stoicism. It has a lot to do with recognizing your surroundings, looking at what's available to you, and being decisive and making the best decision possible. I think in really difficult situations, a lot of people, our first instinct as human beings is to complain, right, and to point out those things that we want to happen that didn't happen, to point blame, which we're really good at in the media. All right, somebody has to be blamed for something going wrong. Who can we find to blame? And for me, that my idea of radical acceptance is, okay, let's not waste time with that. That's a waste of time, energy, and emotion. What do we have in front of us right now? What's the best thing for us to do? And then let's go do it. So to me, that cuts a lot of wasted time, a lot of energy, a lot of wasted emotion. And it keeps us all together and going in one direction. So something bad happens, something unexpected happens. Okay, great. Assess the situation. Let's all get on the same page and let's move
So with
forward.
that said, where are you guys at right now in Northern California regarding beginning training camp and having to radically accept so many changes that have happened recently?
Yeah, we still have some questions that need to get answered. Our administration is in communication with our county to make sure that we're on the same page. The state made some announcements last week, so now we're making our adjustments for that. Until we have those answers, we're not going to get ahead of ourselves. There are things that we can do right now every single day that continue to prepare our team to play football. So those things that we're going to do. And now we have multiple plans kind of going ahead depending on what information we get back from the county. But we intend on practicing and starting Friday and getting ready to play some football.
David, I know a lot of Stanford fans watching this right now are excited to obviously see the product that you guys put on the field come November. Can you give us kind of a sneak peek? Is there anyone, and I know you've had limited access to your guys and it hasn't been a typical off season, of course, but is there one or two even younger guys that you're excited to see that you think that we'll be talking about as the season progresses?
That's a good question. I think there's a lot of talk about our young skill guys on the offensive side. EJ Smith and Casey Filkins, both coming out of high school, being one of the better players in their areas and making a lot of plays. John Humphreys is another name that's thrown around a lot as a big time receiver, scored a lot of touchdowns in high school. These guys have a little road ahead of them, a lot to learn, a lot of guys to compete with to get on the field. I think there's the pressure's off a lot of our guys that this year doesn't count for the eligibility. So not just for our young guys, but for our older guys. We have a shortened season right now, so we're not worried about guys making career numbers and breaking school records and all those things. Now it's just about guys getting in there, competing like crazy, and then putting the best guys on the field for whatever plays that we're going to run.
I love that. John Humphreys, you know how I feel about him. Regarding those two guys, or at least two of the three, EJ and John, what have players said to you about what they've seen in some of their organized workouts?
Yeah, I think they've seen exactly what you and I have seen. The guys that come in, young guys that come in, first of all, when they're humble, right? That's the first thing that gets the older guys' attention. When the guys come in and they just work, they ask good questions and they follow the older guys. That's what a lot of our younger guys have done. They've come in and worked extremely hard. And then number two, they got ability, it shows very quickly. And I think we got I'm excited about this freshman class. not just for this year, but for the coming years. Their maturity, their playmaking ability. We've got some guys with size and strength on our offensive line and the defensive line. And so I'm excited about this group growing up fast.
Last time I remember, Coach, you telling me a story about the older guys paying attention to a younger guy was when they came and said, Coach, we cannot wait for you to see how Christian McCaffrey practices. That line is still fresh in my mind from a few years ago. And that obviously turned out pretty well. David Shaw, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate it. Best of luck with getting everything in place that needs to fall into place this week. And we look forward to catching up with you soon and washing the card this year.
Thank you much.